Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us for this crucial stakeholder engagement piece surrounding the Future Ready PA Index. My name is Brian Campbell, and I'm the Director of the Bureau of Curriculum, Assessment, and Instruction, and I am the Programmatic Lead for the development of the index and operationalizing the index. And joining me today is Alan Muir, the Vice President of PLS Third Learning, which is the company that designs and hosts several PDE websites. And about halfway through the presentation, he will take over on some of the website design. And we do appreciate your time. We know this is a busy part of the year for school leaders and for business folks in the community around the school. But we do want you to know that we take these things very seriously. This is the second wave of our stakeholder engagement sessions. And you'll notice, if you've been following the development of the index over time, there are some subtle changes that we have instituted as a result of the first round of comments. So we find this very valuable. We hope you find it informative and valuable. And we appreciate you taking the time and giving us some feedback on the development of the index so far. So a quick review, quick kind of history review of what is the Future Ready Index and how did we get to where we are today. And this is a project that began very early in the administration. Governor Wolf and Secretary Rivera were looking for a way to measure schools a little more holistically than the SPP. If you remember, for the last several years under No Child Left Behind, the school performance profile has been used as the state accountability report for individual schools. And there were two things that the governor charged the secretary to look at in developing a new tool. One is a little less emphasis on point-in-time standardized testing. The formula for SPP is written into the law, and it's a regulation about teacher evaluation, not about school performance ranking. And about 85% of the calculation of the SPP is reliant on the standardized test scores, the PSSA or Keystone scores for a particular building. So a lot of weight right now is given to school evaluation based on this about 2-week window of assessment. We also wanted to look at a more comprehensive measure of the school that looks at the whole student experience. So some look at some things that happens before the year, some on-track measures of the student, of course, the testing and growth that the student shows during the year, and even some school output indicators, like what happens to the student as they move forward in the education system. ESSA allowed us a unique opportunity, and one of the things we wanted to move away from in development of the index was the idea of a single summative score. SPP would be, if you look at that list, a single numeric value. Schools were assigned a number based on a mathematic formula that rolled the indicators into a single performance value. And there are states that have similar systems before and even after ESSA. People have proposed, A to F, like school grades, star ratings. If you've bought anything on Amazon or when you use Yelp, you get the star idea. Different things like that, category titles based on score ranges or rankings, but something that was an overall ranking system, rating system. There are some limits to comparing schools that way. With 85% of the SPP based on those standardized test scores, the other 15% is based on some of what we call those bonus point kind of indicators like APIB, NOCTIA NIMS, industry certifications, things like that. Then there are some educational initiatives that are not factored into SPP at all. Things like internships, cooperative work experiences, things like that. By weighting those in a mathematical formula, to a degree, you're making a policy decision on what's most important. So we're saying that, with 85% testing is very important. With 15%, your APIB, NOCTI, NIMS, so your pathways of study are kind of important, and work-based learning experiences are not important at all because they don't factor into the mathematical formula. Well, that mathematical formula doesn't reflect the beliefs of every school or every community, and this is a local control state, and people should be allowed to make those decisions for themselves, what the school values, rather than have it weighted out in a prescribed math formula. There's also an issue when you average things together, when you average a number of indicators together. Often you combine things that are dissimilar, and what it does is you hide certain performance. So really strong performance in one category, especially a weighted category like proficiency, could hide low performance in another category that's less weighted. Or, more importantly, overall student performance in a very high range could mask low performance from a particular subgroup or a particular grade level in the testing or things like that. Here's a quick example of what we're talking about. So these are two high schools, and this works out in the mathematical formula. Now, obviously, we suppress the names and the numbers here for the sake of the example. But if we look at the first school, they've got very high proficiency rates. We looked at the second school, who also had good proficiency scores, not quite as good, but they had better scores on the advanced placement IB tests, and they had more students that were actually advanced on the Keystone. Remember that the proficiency percentage is the number of students proficient or advanced. It's the number of students who are over the line. It doesn't really give you any credit for how far over that finish line you take that particular student. Okay? When you look at these two schools, this was the actual number that came out. Okay? Now, obviously, both are very strong schools, and those are both very good numbers. But should we really say that a school is better than another one or ranked higher than another one, 8 points higher, just because they achieved that high score and that proficiency in a different way? What we really want to say is both of these schools are doing really well. They're just doing it in a different way. And the way they're doing it might be a way that's important to their, or should be, we hope, a way that's important to their constituents, to the parents, to the community. There's a lot of reasons a school might place more weight or more importance on the number of AP classes they're running or things like that. Neither way is right or better. They're just two ways at getting at a good result. So we don't want to weight ways that schools use to get to a good result. So ESSA allows us to present the school accountability report in a dashboard approach. And in the dashboard approach, we want to look at the way this can maximize transparency. We're going to put out a lot of information, and we're going to let districts and district constituents, people in the community, the surrounding businesses, the parents, the different folks that are going to look at the index, we're going to let them decide with this information what's good or what they would do differently inside of their school system. It's also a good way for school leaders, to develop the professional development, to have conversations with their board. Especially when you have, in the case of a school board, often you have people trained in educational research and educational jargon, dealing with folks that aren't. Well, instead of analyzing a number and breaking a number down in a very strict, rigid math formula, you're going to be able to look at these varied pieces of information and have honest conversations about what you value as a school system, not what is weighted by the most points. So there are three types of indicators on the PA Future Ready Index. The first of those are state assessment measures. Now, of course, these are still federal accountability measures. We're not going to get rid of testing, and there is a value to knowing how students did in a particular school year. But we're going to reduce that emphasis as we go through this. You'll see from 85% to about 33%. So we're still going to look at the percent proficient in advanced, as we've always done, and we're going to look at the number of students who meet the growth expectation, and that's of course determined by PVAS. Not a lot of change there other than we're adding the number of indicators trying to look at the whole child approach. We're also going to display the percent advanced. Again, go back to the idea of we're going to look at not just how many kids get across that finish line, how far across the finish line they get. We're going to display on-track measures. These are more, that testing tells you about the year or the subject in which they're currently enrolled. This is going to tell you about overall the school experience, how the student is doing in some different areas in success up to that point. Federally, again, there are two. You can see the flag icon there denotes there are two federal indicators in each one of these categories. The first is English language proficiency. That is new as a federal indicator. It was mandated by ESSA. Remember that Pennsylvania is now a WIDA state. So in the past, this was there was a curve, if you will, applied to student test scores, their standardized test scores, and it was a number generated from how many years the non-native speaker was in the country and spent immersed in the non-native language. The access test actually measures growth. Now, it still takes the number of years the students in the country, but it actually measures movement toward language acquisition targets rather than curving a test score that might be in a subject like math or science. Chronic absenteeism is also a new measure. It's a federal report. Chronic absenteeism, rather than, we've always taken attendance, and this is no new report or no new kind of burden on the schools. It's going to be the same PIMS data we've always collected on attendance. We're just going to apply a formula now that looks at the student level as opposed to just churning out your average daily membership or your average daily rate. And the reasoning behind that is that, again, we're looking at on track of a student. So if you have a room full of 20 students and they've missed 100 days because they've each missed 5, that's a rate. That doesn't necessarily tell you a whole lot about the progress of any one student. But if 18 of the students have missed 3 or 4 days each and 2 have missed 12, which can give you a similar rate, you've got 2 students that you can reasonably say have missed enough seat time that they may not be on track. So chronic absenteeism will take the same data and break it down at that student level. And then we're going to look at grade 3 reading and grade 7 mathematics early indicators of success. This is not, while it says new, we're going to look at it a new way, but it's not a new concept. A lot of people don't realize that a grade 3 reading score is weighted more heavily in the SPP formula because it is an early indicator of literacy. We know that students that master certain literacy skills in the primary grades do better overall throughout schooling. So we're going to measure that in a similar way. We're going to allow schools to measure that either through their PSSA testing or through a local assessment. We're also going to apply that to grade 7 mathematics because we know that students who complete Algebra 1 before entering high school also do better overall in almost every subject other than ELA, but there's a direct correlation to math, science, arts, technical subjects. So we know that that's an early indicator to that math gateway, that 7th grade getting into pre-algebra and mastering that level of mathematics before your entrance into high school. Then our third grouping of indicators are our college and career measures. And here we're looking again at, a lot of these things, especially in the world of SPP, very good at measuring kind of input data. We're going to look at some output data too. So we want to look at the graduation rate. And again, this is federally mandated by ESSA. We're going to look at the career standards benchmark, which Pennsylvania developed, and there's been a lot of separate guidance out about the career standards benchmark, but we are looking at the integration of the career education and work standards at each grade band, at grades K to 5, grades 6 to 8, and grades 9 to 11. And those standards were adopted in 2006, and we know that a lot of schools out there we see all the time have done some really great projects surrounding those things and getting kids the kind of work experiences, you know, co-ops and internships and different things, you know, and for the younger kids, a lot of career awareness things, you know, career nights and job fairs and interest inventories and things like that. They just aren't getting a lot of credit for it. So we have come up with a way to monitor those career portfolios that have been mandated in the past, and for schools to get some credit for the work they're doing in preparing kids for career. Also, you'll see in there are those things that previously were kind of bonus points in SPP, in the SPP world. There's no longer points attached to them, but we are going to display these again for informational purposes. The number of students that do well on the NOCTI NIMS, the competency assessments, that earn industry recognized credentials, or that complete those work-based learning experiences like co-ops and job shadows. We're also going to look at the students who complete rigorous courses of study, AP and IB enrollment, dual enrollment courses, college and the high school where we can earn college credits, and the students who are advanced on their NOCTI and NIMS and complete articulated programs of study. And again, you'll notice in the SPP also, there were certain indicators in which a career technical school had an easier time or were able to report and score that maybe your conventional high schools, traditional high schools were not, and vice versa. We know there are CTCs out there that offer AP classes. They should be able to claim the same kind of credit for that as a conventional high school that can offer a high industry cert because they run a CTE certified program. So we wanted to even that out and make sure that all schools were recognized for their ability to do those things. We're also going to look at the post-secondary transition to school, military, and work. And these are 16 months after graduation. So this is a bit of a lagging indicator. And again, this is not a new report for schools. We're not going to rely on survey data or things like that. We've actually been able to attain this data through partnerships with the NCAA Clearinghouse, with the United States military, and through a partnership data sharing with the Department of Labor and Industry, Department of Revenue, and PennDOT. So what you're actually going to see, we've talked a lot about what we're going to measure. We've talked about why it's different. So let's describe, when Alan goes through the screenshots, what you're going to see. You're going to be able to see your school's performance in these indicators. So your percentage or your number of things that we're measuring within the indicator. We're going to display the statewide average. Now, the average has nothing to do with the scoring. The average is for context and for informational purposes. But we think it's important. If you look at a thing like those, an indicator that's measuring those industry certifications, a conventional high school that's able to get 15% of their graduates an industry cert, that's probably a pretty good number. That school's got a pretty strong program and is doing something right that deserves acknowledged. Parents though may not realize that 15% is a high number in an indicator like that, especially when in SPP, you know, proficiency and growth are measured in, you know, you're kind of conditioned to look for these numbers as close to 100% as possible. Conversely, a CTE that is only getting, you know, 15% of their kids a work-based learning experience, that's probably not as strong a number. So we're going to look at the statewide average for context inside of these indicators so that people know the standard or know what they're kind of looking for in these percentages and in this information. We are going to display a statewide goal, and all of these indicators will have a 2030 statewide goal as part of ESSA. The proximity, the achievement or proximity or progress toward those goals is how the indicators are scored in the Future Ready PA Index. So we're going to look at progress designations. We are not going to have an overall summative score, and we are not going to roll all these scores together, but each school is going to be scored inside each indicator, scored against itself. And the way those designations come out, a school may meet or exceed the statewide goal. The 2030 goals are determined in reducing the number of students who are not proficient or not meeting that goal over a number of years, about 13 years, obviously, with the institution of the plan to 2030. So there are going to be schools that right away have met or exceeded that 2030 goal, if not in the first year, certainly in years before 2030. So those indicators would be scored, and you'll see the display a little bit, but those will get a blue designation. They've met or exceeded the goal. Inside each goal, as we talked about too, there are going to be yearly improvement targets. And those targets are kind of calculated by taking that overall goal and dividing that up into 13 steps. Now there will be a statewide goal based on the 2030 goal and school-wide goals, which are based from the school's original baseline from the 2015-16 year. So a school that is either meeting the state interim target or the school's improvement target would be designated green. So you haven't got to that 2030 goal yet, but you're showing a level of progression and improvement that gives us confidence that you will make it in the designated 13 years. And there are also schools that will be scored not meeting either that statewide goal or those interim improvement targets. This is where we've added with the stakeholder engagement experience. So again, we appreciate your participation and the contributions you're going to make to us at the end of this slideshow, because we really do take this into account. We really are trying to make this tool the absolute best tool we can make it. Originally, a lot of these progress designations were proposed to just kind of be colored dots, if you will, or colored banners. We used to call them stickers, for lack of a better term. What we want to do is now change the shape of these icons so that not only are we going to show the school's performance designation, but show the school's performance relative to their proficiency or their achievement the year before. So any of these arrows, a school that performance has improved in an indicator, has stayed the same in an indicator, or has declined in an indicator, any of those three arrows could be any of the three colors. So that would really give you 9 designations overall, okay? At the 2030 goal, improving, at the 2030 goal but declining, same way at an interim target, at a target improving, a target declining, or not meeting either target but improving or declining. So you would see those, and I think when you see the screenshots that Alan puts up, it'll make some sense. So at this time, I am going to turn the presentation over to Alan Muir, and he is going to walk through some actual screenshots with you, some early design, anyway, some tentative screenshots with you to kind of visualize this information, and you can see how these indicators are going to be presented to you that I've just described.
Thank you, Brian. So as Brian indicated, what we want to do is take a look at some of the screenshots as far as the design goes, keeping in mind that these are all still in draft form. At the end of this presentation, we have several questions that we'll ask that will pertain to some of these screenshots specifically and some of the aspects of the design. And like Brian said, we do take the information that you provide, seriously. So we'll start with how to search for a school. And you can see from this slide that you can search for a school through its name, through the district, through a location, Or if you want to search for a CTC center or a charter or cyber school, you have those particular options. If we're searching through the school by its name, we can type the first couple of letters, and then what you would see appear would be a list of schools that start with those letters. You would also have the school district that the school accompanies, and then you would have the grade level that goes along with that particular school. So if that was the school that you were looking for, then you could click on that school and it would take you to the school page. This slide is showing the location search. So what we can do is we can search for schools using the map of Pennsylvania. So in this case, you can see that we would be hovering over Center County. In Center County, there are 101 schools nearby. If we want to see the list of schools that would be in Center County, you can see over on the right where it says to show the list. So we could click on that. We could see the list of schools. Again, that menu would show us the school name, the district that the school is in, and then the grade levels. If we wanted to search or reset the map, you can see we can do that from the bottom. We can move the map. We can hover over different parts of the map and see different schools that would be in those different counties. Another part of the search is the advanced search. So at the bottom of where you could search for schools by name, you have more search options. And this screenshot is showing you some of the possible ways to search for schools. We can search by grade levels. We can search by enrollment ranges. We can search by school type. You see the district schools. If you want to just focus on CTC schools, or if you want to focus on charter schools, we can search by the setting, urban, suburban, rural. If you have an idea of the zip code, you could put a zip code in there, or you could put your zip code in there, and you could search within a radius of 10 or 20 or 30 miles. You could even use the location that you're located at, when you're accessing the site. We can search by intermediate units or patents. You can see that the next line is demographics. So if we wanted to search by the Asian population, or we wanted to search by the Hispanic population, or we wanted to search by English language learners, different ranges, we could do that. If we wanted to search through the performance measures that Brian was talking about, the state assessment, or any of the on-track and career and college measures, we could do that as well. So what this more search options allows us to do is to take the entire list of schools in Pennsylvania and really become specific on what we're looking for. There will also be a compare tool on the site that will use this similar mechanism to allow us to compare, several schools. You can see on this screen what the demographics search would look like. And you'll notice that there are sliders. So if we wanted to look for the Hispanic population, and we were looking for schools that were between 0 and 40% for Hispanic population, then we could move the slider down where Hispanic is located and move the right-hand side down to the 40%. Whatever the other sliders are on, that's what we would use, or it could refer back to the default, whatever those individual schools have. This would be the same thing for measures and indicators. You would have a slider of ranges that are associated with each of the measures. So you can get as specific as you want, and you'll really limit the schools that will come back for you to search and find. So let's pretend that we found a school that we're looking for. So we go to the school page. This would be the school landing page. And on this page, you can see the federally required measures. You have the state assessment measures, on-track measures, college and career measures, and underneath there you see the indicators that are associated with those measures. Along with each of the indicators, you see the scoring that Brian was referring to. Recall that blue would indicate that the school for that measure has met the 2030 statewide goal. Green means that the school has met the annual target either for the state or for the school. Red means that the school has not met the annual target, nor are they meeting that statewide 2030 goal. If it's an upward arrow, that means that the performance measure this year has increased when compared to the performance measure last year. So you can see from this page that some of the performance measures have upward green arrows, some of the performance measures have upward red arrows, and then a couple of the performance measures just have solid circles. What a solid circle indicates is, in this case, if it's a green one, the school has met either the statewide target or the school target, and the change from last year to this year is basically the same. At the bottom of each of the cells, you see where it could be expanded to see all the additional performance measures that go with each of those. So for example, at the bottom of state assessment measures, if we were to click that, it would take us to the state assessment measures, percent proficient or advanced, the growth, and the advanced. If we were to click on the on-track measures, then we could see all of the on-track measures, which would be your regular attendance, would be your grade 3, grade 7, and it would be your English language proficiency. And then the same thing is true with college and career measures. So let's pretend that we're just interested in the state assessment measures. So we click at the bottom of the state assessment measure cell, and what we see, first of all, this would be the key that I just talked about. So you can see that the different colors of circles and how they pertain to the progress the school was making. So now let's pretend that we clicked on that state assessment measure, and now we're going to the state assessment measures for that particular school. So here we see the percent proficient or advanced for mathematics, for science, and for English language arts. The next row, which you're not able to see on this screen, would be the growth for mathematics, science, English language arts. And then there's a row underneath that that would be percent advanced. And Brian talked about not just seeing have the students met the target, but how far beyond that, that goal line they have gone. So we're just looking right now at the percent proficient or advanced. And what you can see would be the scoring for the all student group. So again, green meaning that the school met either the annual state target or the school target. And you can also then see the specific percents that are associated with each of the content areas. Like the one on the left, it says that the mathematics is 44.4%. So 44.4% of the students scored proficient or advanced. And then you can see science, and then you can see ELA. Well, as Brian indicated, another measure that we show for context would be the statewide averages. So you can see in mathematics that the school scored 44.4%, the statewide average is 42.6%. So as a user, you can make a determination of how well your school is performing, by looking at that statewide average and using that as some context. The other piece of information that's on this slide would be the statewide goal. So it lets you see how well the school is performing for the current year in comparison to what they're shooting for as far as the statewide goal goes. Beneath each of the measures that you see are a view participation. So if we were to click on that, we could see the participation in the PSSAs, the Keystones, and the alternative assessment for mathematics. Or if we were interested in looking at the participation for science, we could do the one for science, and the same thing for English language arts. The other row that's below each of those cells is the view student group breakdown. So we have information on this particular slide about what the percent performance would be for all the students. So now let's look at what that performance looks like from a student group breakdown perspective. So on the student group breakdown page, again, you see information based on coloring and scoring for the all student group. And then you see different race and ethnicities and demographics, economically disadvantaged, English learners, students with disabilities. You see the percent proficient or advanced in this case, because this is for mathematics or algebra. And then you see the progress either towards the 2030 statewide goal or the progress for that yearly target, either the state target or the school target, or you see the lack of progress. Again, the green arrow tells you that the school's performance has increased compared to last year. If it's a red downward arrow, then that means that the school's performance has decreased compared to last year. So again, this is giving you both the numerical information as well as a pictorial or visual view of how well the school is performing, with respect to these subgroups. We're back at the school landing page, and if you notice at the top, what's highlighted now is school fast facts. So the tab that we just looked at and went through would be the school performance tab, where you can look at your state assessments, your on-track measures, or your college and career measures. Well, now let's say that you're on the school page and you want to see some of the associated fast facts that go along with that school. So you can see a map that shows you basically where the school is located. There's a school website there, so if you want to go out to the school, and this is where the schools can place information on their websites that would really allow them to highlight some of the things that they're doing. You see other information in bar graphs, as well as the information about race, ethnicity in terms of a circle graph. Down at the bottom, you see if you're interested in the school safety reports, or you're interested in special education data or the state audit, you can click one of those links, and that would take you to those links that would give you more information about school safety with respect to the school, the district, and the state. If we wanted to take a look at the district fast facts, then we would connect or hit the tab at the top for district fast facts. And on district fast facts, now it's from the district perspective. Again, you can see percent enrollment by student groups, percent enrollment by gender. So you have your bar graphs, you have the number of schools, the grades offered, information about district enrollment, information about the career and technical center that it's associated with, information about IUs that they're associated with. On the right-hand side, you see the percent enrollment by race and ethnicity. So again, it's just giving you a real broad stroke picture of some of the fast facts that are associated with the district. If you want to really hone in on what the district has to offer, then you could click the district website, and that would take you to the district website, and they often publish a lot more information about the school. So this takes us to the end of our presentation, and I'd just like you to thank you for taking time this afternoon. As Brian said, we know that this time of year, any time of year when you're an educator, it is very busy. So we really appreciate this. And this survey, there are 6 questions on it. The first 2 questions deal with kind of some background information about yourself. And then the other 4 questions are specific to the design, the content, the flow. Does it reach that goal of the users able to look at it and visually see how well the school is performing? So this Survey Monkey is open up now, and will be open up for a couple of days. Again, we really appreciate you providing feedback, and the feedback that we receive does make a difference. I'm going to turn this back over to Brian for any final comments.
Okay, again, yeah, I just want to echo Alan's thoughts there, and thank everyone for the time. The link is up on this slide. We'll also put it out in the comment bar, so that if you want to just cut and paste it, you can do that. We'll leave this slide up for a few minutes. We have a few minutes of time remaining in the webinar, so we'll leave the slide up for you if you need it. And we do appreciate everyone. I know we have some school leaders, and we have some community members on with us, some IU folk. There's some folks from higher ed. So I know there are a lot of people with different roles and different perspectives looking at this. So again, it's very valuable feedback, and it's feedback we take very seriously. So I want to thank everyone for attending. We'll leave the address up, and we'll put it out so that you may cut and paste to save yourself some time if you want to put it right in your browser now, and appreciate your time and any feedback we get. Thank you very much.